And the fact is, most businesses never think about this. They say, well, we'll be a little bit the cheapest. Well, that's like being a little bit pregnant, isn't it? I mean, either you is or you ain't. Now, why is it so important in creating our vision for our business to deal with this basic decision? Because every other decision that we make in our business depends on this one. Tiffany's, the famous American jeweler, and Costco. Do you think they make different decisions about whether to be the cheapest or not to be the cheapest? Tiffany's, Costco, what they sell, how they sell it, where they're located, the people they hire, how they train them, their policies, the types of buyers that they hire, everything is different based on this decision. So if we're going to have true clarity in our business, we need to come to grips with to be the cheapest or not to be the cheapest. How many of you in this room, your strategy is not to be the cheapest? Okay, anybody, your strategy is to be the cheapest. Now, if you can make a living doing that, that's kind of cool, but it's not easy. So, how would you like to run an ad that sounds like this? It would be pretty, it would have pictures of your stuff and all that, and how to contact you. But the guts of the ad would be this. You look your customer straight in the eye in your ad and say, we may as well tell you right now we're not the cheapest. How many of you like to have the guts to run that sucker? May as well tell you right now we're not the cheapest, and here's why. What's the only part of that that matters? And here's why. Your compelling value. And here's why. Benefits, not features. Because our business is painted pink, nobody gives a damn. And you know how you know when you're talking about a benefit, not a feature? You say, well, we do this and this and this, which means to you, blah, 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 blah. And then that's the benefit. And if it doesn't mean anything to them, then don't talk about it. It's meaningless. We may as well tell you right now we're not the cheapest, and here's why. Here's a metalworking shop in Edmonton, Alberta, that has got this figured out. This is right off their website. It's Metal Fabricators and Welding. We're known as the go-to supplier for complex, quickly needed, or one-of-a-kind fabricated metal products. Is there anything about the words complex, quickly needed, or one-of-a-kind that says we also drop our pants on price? No. No. We're the go-to people for complex, quickly needed, one-of-a-kind fabricated metal parts. We don't drop our pants. That's not what we do. It's not what's compelling about us. Here's Giorgio's Pizza in Pensacola, Florida. They don't want to play the discounted pizza game. And this is what they say on their website. Voted best pizza on the Bay, which is Pensacola Bay. Voted best pizza on the Bay. That's the proof they offer, right? Only the finest ingredients go into our pizza, and that costs a little more. Do we all understand that the finest ingredients cost a little more? We get that, right? So, our pizza is not for everyone. If you're looking for cheap, you won't find it here. Bugger off. We're not for everybody. We're not for everybody. If you're looking for cheap, you won't find it here. And they give you the proof, and they tell you why their pizza's better, and they give you the proof that it's better, and then they say, hey, don't even, just don't bother coming around if you're looking for cheap. That's classy. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, I was doing some work, and on my way to the airport, didn't have my camera once again, but I mocked this up when I got home. This is, look at the name of the business, Tulsa Lawns of Perfection. Anybody have the guts to phone in and ask for a cheap quote on grass cutting? No, they don't do cheap, they do perfect. And perfect ain't cheap, we all get that. Tulsa Lawns of Perfection, right in the name of the business. Now, on the other hand, there's a great business in a chain of retail stores in New Zealand. What's the name of it? 2 words, cheap liquor. That's a really great business name. No positioning statement required. 2 words, cheap liquor. It tells you everything you need to know. They have another business chain, retail chain in New Zealand called Really Cheap Auto Parts. What, do you really want to buy a set of brakes from your mother-in-law's car? Maybe, but you want to buy a set of brakes from a company called Really Cheap Auto Parts? I don't know. It just might not work so good. Or your strategy might be to be the cheapest. Let us save you some valuable time. We are the cheapest. And here's how we do it. Because if your strategy is to be the cheapest, I think if you don't tell people how you do it, I'm a jeweler. Twice a year I fly to Antwerp. I buy diamonds. I swallow them. I rush home. Whatever it is, I don't know. But at least it's an explanation. Because, see, the thing is that if people are looking for the cheapest, what do they spend a lot of running around looking for who is the cheapest? A lot of time. They spend a lot of time, they give up time in order to run around and find out who really is the cheapest. So you say, let us save you some valuable time. We are the cheapest, and here's how we do it. See, that grabs people. Here's a guy who has an explanation as to why he's on sale. Mr. Toscana. Mr. Toscana has had expensive divorce, now needs the money, sale on now. This is an explanation. That I get, but anyway. Okay, so this whole vision statement thing. 6 points that creates clarity. And I give you this example. This will be in this whole package at the end if you choose to snap it out. So, here's one that we came up with for a pizza chain that was just floating. They just had no idea. There was no clarity in the business. See if there's any clarity in this. We are committed to being a 4-location chain of upscale 80-seat licensed pizza and pasta restaurants in the greater Cincinnati area in 3 years with sales of $6.5 million and an ROI of 18%. Anything specific and measurable there? Lots. Clarity there? Yes. Second, we will offer award-winning traditional and gourmet pizzas, pastas, and salads in an open kitchen, authentic Mediterranean setting. Quality, service, and prices will be above average. We will have 80-foot candles of lighting. Overall, a low noise level, a no tipping policy. We will be named Best Pizza in Cincinnati within 3 years. Anything clear, specific there? Clarity? Absolutely. Took us a day only to create this. We will achieve the highest possible rating for cleanliness and food handling, because if the health inspector comes in and shuts you down, you're out of business, right? So that's really important. Number 3, we're committed to creating an internal business environment that makes us the preferred restaurant employer in our area within 1 year. Now, there's nothing mathematically measurable there, but here's how I would measure that one. If every time you have an opening for a new person in your business, every time you have an opening, you have 5, 6, or 7 resumes in your desk drawer from really good people who have dropped their resumes off saying, everybody in the industry knows your place is the place to work. And if you ever have an opening, please call me first. And you have 6 or 7 of those in the drawer every time you have an opening, you've probably achieved that one. Number 5, we're committed to being the most efficient restaurant in our segment, in our geographic area, with the highest sales per employee within 2 years. And they belong to the Regional Restaurant Association, and they do benchmarking studies, and so you can compare yourself to all the other restaurants in the area, and you know whether you have met that one. Number 6, how are we going to give back to the community is our number 6 of the 6 points. We will commit 1% of sales to helping the disadvantaged in our community, and we will deliver free pizza to firemen and volunteer workers helping in all major disasters in our community. That's how they're going to give back. Which also means every time they do that, they will be on the 11 o'clock news. Being good and caring people. And they could never afford to buy an ad on the 11 o'clock news. So it's a very cool thing. Nothing wrong with a win-win. So you see, that's what it looks like. And what we do, we have a vision-critical guide. 7 years I spent creating this, step-by-step, fill in the blanks, with all the tools and templates and things right here. Vision-critical guide, we'll talk about that at the end. And once you know what your vision is, then you've got to make sure that you have a business model that will actually help you get there. And one of my questions always is, have you created a business model that works for your life model? Have you created a business model that works for your life model? Cora did. Cora was an immigrant woman in Montreal with 2 teenage kids, and her husband abandoned them one day, just disappeared, never to be seen again, no financial support, and she had 2 kids to raise and only one skill. She was a good cook. So she opened a little restaurant in Montreal. Breakfast and lunch only. She said, I'm a single mom and I need to be home to do dinner with my kids and to supervise homework so that they do well in school. And so I'm not doing dinner. Most restaurants would rather open for dinner only and forget breakfast and lunch. She said, no. Breakfast and lunch only. Gotta be home. I'm a mother. And she created a business model that worked for her life commitments, her life model. And they're now, actually, there's over 130 locations. I got to update my slide. And it's a very successful franchise. Who are the franchisees that she attracts? People who are in a very similar life circumstance as she was back in the day. And now she's a millionaire, created a business model that worked for her life model, and her kids have turned out very well, by the way. How about creating a business model around a philosophy, or a philosophy around a business model? This company, Live Edge Design in Duncan, British Columbia, makes gorgeous, one-of-a-kind, everyone different pieces of furniture from trees down by storms or rejected by loggers. And they have a fabulous positioning statement: reclaimed, refined, remarkable. Isn't that cool? And every piece is gorgeous, and every piece is different. It is not just their business model, it is their philosophy. It is their commitment to life. Now, is that something that would emotionally connect with certain target customers? I think so. It certainly does. They become hugely successful. And their raw materials really, really cheap. Very cool. Reinventing the canvas top and awning business. This guy up in Muskoka, north of Toronto, working out of Huntsville, Ontario, he makes boat covers for boats, also awnings and things for restaurants, but mostly it's boat covers. And he used to rent space in Huntsville and pay rent and taxes and all that stuff. And then he'd come to your cottage and he would measure your boat, and that would be a 2-hour drive. And he'd drive 2 hours back to his shop in Huntsville, and then he would sew the thing up and he would bring it back, and if it didn't fit exactly, I'd go back to Huntsville and modify it. So you know what he did? He bought this horse trailer, empty, kind of just a big, nice trailer that was, when it has guts in it, it's a horse trailer, but he put in it a cutting table with this raw material underneath, his fabric, a serger and a seamer, sewing machine, and some lighting, and runs off his car engine and for electricity. And he's got billboards on both sides of the vehicle, got some canvas, and so that's his traveling billboard. So he actually drives to the marina where you keep your boat, or drives to your cottage where you have your boat. He measures the boat, he shows you the different fabric samples, the different qualities, gives you the quote, and you say, go ahead. And then he actually cuts it and puts it on and makes it right then and there. If there's a little problem, he has to walk 20 feet to his shop to do it. He has tripled his business and reduced his overhead to nothing because he doesn't pay taxes or utilities anymore in a town. And he does 3 times the business in the same amount of working time. And people love to watch him work. It's an experience. You're like, man, work those things up in an hour and a half. Still cost me $700. But you did it in an hour and a half. And I just love to watch it. And so it's very cool. He reinvented his business model. Back-assward approach to profitability. Next little bit's on profitability. See, most businesses, their philosophy is, let's do our best and hope for a decent return. Do our best and hope for the best. Anybody operating on that, let's do our best and hope for the best kind of a theory. But see, here's what we really need to do. This is my back-assward approach to profitability. We need to calculate. If the business is truly going to serve your life, calculate the after-tax profit that you need to, first, live the life you want. Number 2, save for retirement or the kids' education. Number 3, get debt-free and reinvest in the business. So you figure out how much you need. And then you create a business plan for the next few years that actually generates the amount of money you need. And if you simply can't come up with a business plan that has an SCIH, anybody know what an SCIH is? Snowball's chance in hell. If you simply cannot come up with a business model that has a snowball's chance in hell of reaching the number that you need to have the life that you commit to have, you need to either rethink your business or rethink your life. Remember my introduction said Donald will inform you, challenge you, disturb you. Well, that's some of the disturbing stuff. Does your business, as it's set up today, have a snowball's chance in hell of creating for you the life that you commit to have for yourself and your family? Because I work all the time in businesses that don't. So the question is, if you own the business, does it pay you once, twice, 3 times, or not at all? Ideally, the business should pay you 3 times. It should at least pay you twice. First, a salary equal to what you could get working for someone else. Number 2, a return on investment of at least 10%. Because if you own the business and you're working in the business, you have 2 functions. You are an employee and should be paid for that. And number 2, you're an investor and you should be paid for that. Salary plus an ROI of at least 10%. And by the way, what's your ROI in your business? Or what's your investment, rather? What's your investment in the business? People say, oh, I've got to sit down with my accountant. Some assets have appreciated, some assets have depreciated. Got to figure it out with our accountants. Your accountant's got nothing to do with your investment in the business. Try this on for size. Your investment in your business is what you could sell it for next month. Nothing else matters. People say, well, I put $1 million into it. I can only sell it for 300 grand. Well, you pissed away $700,000. Congratulations. I mean, that's just, for any business decision, the only number that matters is what you could sell it for. I'm working with 2 brothers who run a marina. 64 employees. It does $40 million in sales. It's been in the family for 4 generations. Their great-grandfather bought the property for $1,500 on a lake, huge lake. 30 acres, $1,500. They just turned down $30 million from a developer for the land. The marina lost $600 grand last year. They have a $9 million bank line to finance their yacht inventory. They don't sleep at night because they owe $9 million. They lost $600,000, and they each have a son in the business who have dropped out of high school, no business education, still live at home in their mid-20s, and as both the fathers say, we've got to kick their bedroom door down and drag their asses out of bed to get them to show up at the shop. And what, you're hanging on to this sucker for the kids? You turned down $30 million. Say you lost $600,000, you turned down $30 million, your inventory would pay off. If you cleared out the inventory, it would cover the bank loan, so that's a wash. You'd be left with $30 million to invest. Invested at 6%, that's $1.8 million. How much would you have to turn the business bottom line around to make it worthwhile to continue to be a marina? The $1.8 million you could get for the $30 million a year, plus you'd have to pick up the $600 grand that you lost, so you'd have to make $2 million for. As a bottom line turnaround, you'd have to improve the bottom line by $2 million for to begin to make sense to continue being a marina. And you're 62 and 65 and you're tired and don't want to do it anymore, and your kids are losers. They pay me money. I think I'm stealing a job from a 10-year-old. And then the third way the business should pay you, if you're really clever, is you own the building under a separate real estate company, and your operating company pays your real estate company rent every month, and when you sell the business someday, you still own the real estate, which may be your biggest asset at the end of the journey after all. Is the business paying you once, twice, 3 times, or not at all? And you have an exit strategy and a succession plan. You know, there's 2 succession plans needed. Number 1 is an eventual succession plan, and number 2 is a catastrophic succession plan. No one ever talks about that. The catastrophic succession plan is what happens to the business if you get hit by a bus tomorrow. No one ever thinks about that. I deal with lots of families where that's happened. Nobody knows a thing about the business. No one knows about the secret bank accounts. Well, one of the mysteries in Miami, for that matter. That was one of them. Oh, congratulations, your life. Son, I've just died, and my will doesn't mention you, and the whole business is left to some girl named Trixie who's hanging out in a condo in Fort Lauderdale. I did not make this up. And we got people today that are going to talk about that kind of stuff. Here's the math of getting started. This is just reality. The math of getting started in a new business. A new business will often lose money in year 1 and 2, break even in year 3, and make as much money in year 4 and 5 as it lost in year 1 and 2, which means the first 5 years are a wash financially. So you need to have enough human gumption and determination and conviction and enough cash in reserve and capital to get you through the first 5 years. Not in every case, but this is pretty general over 20 years of experience. And by the way, if a new business idea doesn't work out on paper, it almost never works out in real life. If it doesn't work out in paper, you say, hell with it, I'm going for it anyway. If it doesn't work out on paper, because you're a lot more optimistic on paper than the real world turns out to treat you. Now, it can work out well on paper, it's still not work out in real life. Anybody ever found that one? That's just reality. I did some business coaching a couple of years ago in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Young lady took a 2-year course at community college on art weaving. She came in for a 30-minute business coaching session and with her teacher from school, her mentor. And And she said, I got to set this up as a business. And I said, well, let's picture a scarf. You'd make a beautiful scarf, each piece, a piece of artwork. What could they sell for? Oh, she said, $200. And she could produce 4 of them in a week. And I said, well, now, $200. Is that retail or wholesale? She said, what's the difference? I said about half. Because if it's $200 retail, you're going to sell them to a retailer for $100, and they're going to sell them for $200. If you go to a craft fair and sit there all day and make no scarves, so you have no productivity, no production, and you sell one scarf, well, then you sold it for $200 instead of $100. Whoopee, you wasted the whole day sitting there. And she turned anyway. We went through a whole little reality checklist that showed that she could at best make $3.50 an hour. And she turned to her instructor and said, how come we never talk about this in class? You know, veterinarian, 7 years to become a vet, not 5 minutes on how to run the business of a veterinary practice. 5 years to be a land surveyor, not 5 minutes on how to run the business of a land surveying practice. Learn how to cut, dye, and curl hair, not 5 minutes at the school on how to run a hair salon as a business. I'll never run out of work. As long as I can keep doing it, I'll never run out of work. I mean, we got to understand a little bit about reality. And here's a great little thought. Don't have an emotional attachment to an uneconomic business model. I do a ton of work in ag here out west and some in Ontario. And she said, I did work for Monsanto, ag division of Monsanto, a couple of years ago in Ontario, and they said, to be a profitable business model, the average farm in Ontario needs to be about 3,000 acres, but the average farm in Ontario, in fact, is only 300 acres. No, you can complain all you want about how you can't make money in ag, but if your business model is wrong by a factor of 10, 300, 3,000, factor of 10, it might be your business model that's wrong, not your industry. There's a guy over in Saskatchewan that made $1 million last year farming. He owns no land and no equipment. He has a master's degree in growing high-value crops on marginal land. That's a very good thing to have a master's degree in. High-value crops on marginal land. So he rents the land. Who does he rent it from? People who have given up farming because they say you can't make a living, but don't want to sell the land because they have an emotional attachment to an uneconomic asset. He rents the land from him. He owns no equipment. What's he do? He rents the equipment for the few weeks a year that he needs each piece of equipment. What other industry in the world would buy millions of dollars worth of equipment, use it for 3 weeks a year, and let it rust in a field the rest of the time? There's not another industry in the world that would do that. And he made $1 million a year because he changed the business model. He leverages his knowledge. He rents land. He owns no equipment. And I have audiences here in the West, ag audiences, that someone will jump up and say, yeah, but he's not a real farmer. I go, why? Because he's not broken bitchin'? I mean, what's the definition here? He's just come up with a better business model. Do not have an emotional attachment to an economic business model or asset. Oh, I already told you this story. Because of the value of the land, the marina can be sold for $40 million. I said 30, which was actually 40. I have a memory disability. I don't even know what the next slide is. I remember what to say about it. Lost $600,000. How much of a bottom line turnaround required to make it worthwhile to keep operating? $2 million for it. It's nutty. Tired, don't want to do it anymore. The kids are losing. And they turned down $30 million. I said, well, it's only on the books for $1,500. The business is worth what you can sell it for next month. A massive increase in prices by 5%. Here's an example of a business doing $1 million, and they increased their prices by 5%. And nobody knows because they're that good. So they did $1,050,000. 65% cost of goods, $650,000, $650,000. 35% gross margin. Their gross margin is up because they put their prices up 5%. Operating expenses $300,000. And their pre-tax profit went from $50,000 to $100,000 by having a small 5% price increase that nobody knows. Look at the leverage. Look at the impact. So maybe 5 is too much. Maybe 2% you could raise your prices and nobody would notice. Unless you're really sucky and not very good, and they might notice. But if you're really good, who's even going to notice 2% or 5%? But you see, here's the neat thing. By increasing their profit by $50,000, they added between $200,000 and $300,000 to the eventual selling price of their business because businesses sell for a certain number of times earnings. 5 times earnings, 6 times earnings, 7 times earnings, 8 times earnings. So when you put your earnings up, you increase the eventual selling price of your business. In 1 year, not only did they pick up another 50 grand pre-tax on the bottom line, but they increase the eventual value of their business in 1 year by between $200,000 and $300,000. And you do that every year. What's the business worth in 5 years? More than it is if you just keep being mediocre. The math of increasing sales by 5%. The person was increasing prices, this is increasing sales. Increase sales by 5%, you go from $1 million to $1,050,000, and it all shakes down that you have a 5% more sales. Increased sales by 5% gives them 35% more of a bottom line. In which case, they've added $80,000 to $105,000 to the value of the eventual selling price of the business on a times earnings basis. It's incredibly powerful, just 5% more sales. Huge impact. Reduce expenses by 5%. You don't sell anymore, but you reduce your expenses from $300,000 to $285,000, and you grow your bottom line by 30%. Imagine. Be 5% more efficient and grow your bottom line by 30% and add $75,000 or so to the eventual selling price of the business in that year alone on the multiplier effect. It's hugely powerful. How many of you really understand the math of profitability in your business? How many of you know what the bottom line impact would be of increasing prices 5%, sales 5%, reducing expenses? If we don't understand our numbers, we don't understand our business. And sadly, so many business people just don't love the numbers. They don't get involved in the numbers. And then how many of you have a one-sheet little financial plan for the next few years in the business using 2011 as your base year, and then our sales in 2012, 13, 14, 15? Well, you say, yeah, but I don't know what they're going to be. No, I want you to say what they're going to be, commit to what they're going to be, and commit to doing the things required to make it happen. That's the difference between reactive and proactive, and having a celebration party instead of a pity party. So you say, this is what we committed to be. And that's an increase of how much, and that's going to give us a bottom line of how much, and look how worthwhile that is. Anybody here actually have a little financial plan, one piece of paper roughed out, just to understand what our commitments are financially? Anybody have that? A few hands go up, bless you. By the way, profitability is a game of inches. An independent pizza restaurant that I worked with, they spent $40 on Ziploc plastic bags and plastic bins and increased profitability by 24% to control cheese waste. In the pizza business, cheese is the biggest expense. And it was being spilled all over the floor, which was making the floor greasy. There were 3 serious industrial accidents, people cracking their head on the make line counter when they fell down on a greasy floor because of the greasy cheese that was spilled on the floor. And so she reduced her accident rate, but she grew her bottom line by 24% for a $40 expenditure on plastic bins and Ziploc bags. Portion control. Marriott Hotels in 2009 saved $2 million a year by switching to bacon strips of uneven lengths. Now think about that. Their spec was bacon has to all be the same length, every strip. So they paid a premium to the supplier for that, because they had to trim the bacon, and they had these scrap left over. What did they do with the bacon scrap? Cooked it up and sold it as bacon bits. They loved it. Charged Marriott a premium, and then we had bacon bits to sell. Marriott said, you know what? No one's going to check out of the damn hotel 2 days early because the bacon wasn't all the same length. Get it correct. It's irrelevant quality. $2 million bacon of uneven lengths. Sometimes simple works best and being more efficient. Japanese cosmetic maker receives complaints that some of their soap boxes are shipped empty. Little boxes of soap, right? Soap inside a box. And some of the boxes were shipped empty. The engineering department designed a high-definition X-ray machine requiring 2 staff to monitor it, but a production line worker came up with a $50 solution requiring no staff to make sure that no boxes got shipped empty as they're going along the assembly line. Anybody have a clue how they did this? What did they spend the $50 on?
Scale.
A fan. You got it. A fan. They set a fan up. And as the boxes were going by, they set the fan at such a rate that an empty box would blow off